Last week's lesson, you actually sent me an email and said that you liked it, which
I
warmed my
said
heart.
loved it actually.
Oh, thanks, man.
It was a great lesson. It was about personal statements and what to put in them, or what, at least I guess what you could put in them, right? You said this, you don't have to follow this structure, but it's a pretty damn good structure. So if you want to avoid the mistakes that so many people make when they're writing their personal statements, consider this structure. And what I
Yeah,
loved
and
most about it was the way you summed it all up in the end. But
sure, which I'll let you do, but before, like, the reason why that I wrote that lesson is that I was with Carl. I was at the admissions hour that we do
yeah,
for
yeah,
LSAT demon students
yeah.
on Wednesday nights, and I sat in and we brought back the old wood chipper, where we shred somebody's personal statement.
Sure.
And I realized, like so many others, it was a mess. Of the organization of it was a terrible mess, and it was impenetrable. You couldn't figure out what the person even does or is, or, like, it wasn't personal. Like,
Yeah.
we walked away like, huh, who's this guy? And
Yeah.
it did one of these, like, cinematic openings, right, where it drops you into the middle of some drama.
Yeah.
But we didn't have, which is, it's kind of good to start in the middle of your story, with, like, action. On the one hand, that's kind of good, but we had never met this person before. We have no idea who he is. It's not like a movie. In a movie, you at least see the protagonist. So you immediately have an idea how old they are, basically how they're dressed. You can tell, like, maybe what they do for a living, or what their status
Sure.
is,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
what country they're from, or, like, you can get so much from visual cues, right? So in a
Yeah. A
movie,
picture is
if
a
you just,
thousand words.
right, start in the middle of the action scene and it works. But on the page, if this is the first thing we've seen of this guy, what? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I wrote this framework. I was actually on a hike and it just kind of popped into my head. This framework for, hey, if you're really stuck, you're really lost, you have no idea how to get started, here's one way to get started.
Yeah.
And anyway, why don't you talk through it?
Sure. Um, well, so this is your conclusion, really. This is what you said at the very end of your email lesson, and it is the structure that you're recommending that people take when they write their personal statement. And I'll just say this really quick and then try to unpack it to the extent that I can.
Yeah.
Um, your final advice was write something that says what, well, it's basically you're telling the reader what you are, I am, and then you say what you did, I do, and optionally, I will. I realize those are so concise, it might not make any sense to anybody.
Right.
But what you essentially said was at the beginning, you're briefly one, maybe two, but probably just one sentence saying who you are. I am an engineer at Google or something, maybe, right? That's a framework that could work to introduce yourself and give the reader some context quickly. But
That's like the
those,
picture worth a thousand words, right? That's like the
yeah,
snapshot of who
yeah,
you are today.
hmm,
And it's kind of necessarily telling rather than showing, because it's I am, you're
yeah,
just, like, making
yeah,
a statement about what you are. And we always harp on, you can't have too much of that in your statement. But as a very first sentence, maybe two sentences, that one, your example right there is perfect. I am an
yeah,
engineer at Google. Oh, okay. we
yeah, yeah,
we immediately learn so much more about you than just your job title. We
yeah,
can make a bunch of inferences about a bunch of different things based on that, and it gives us, like, a foundation for the story that you're gonna then tell us in this
yeah,
framework. And again, this is only one way to
sure.
do it, but
It's only one way to do it. And I could definitely see people starting their personal statement with an I did, which is your second framework, right? Your second set of sentences you're recommending that people use. But I am is more natural for so many people, right? It's
Hmm.
easier for them just to start there, even if
And
they
it,
end up cutting it.
yeah, and I think it could also lend itself to a or foster more of a conversational tone, which,
Mm,
people are so damn stuffy in their writing. It's like they do not
yeah.
write the way they speak, which is a shame.
Yep.
And so starting off with I am, my example was I am, I'm the co-founder of LSAT Demon, and which is an online LSAT prep program.
Yeah.
And it's just like a statement of, yeah, okay, here's who I am today.
Yeah. Yeah.
One sentence or two sentences, that's it. And then the next step I was envisioning in this framework, I was envisioning one skip back in the timeline.
Yeah. You talk about something that you've done in the past, and this is where you came up with the pithy recommendation to talk about what I did.
Right.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm being very formulaic, and I really want to offer people hey, here's a structure you can follow that'll work and it won't be so
Yeah.
damn confusing. Because this guy, the one that Carl and I read again
Mm-hmm.
in the admissions hour, this guy was doing all kinds of crazy Tarantino style skipping around in the timeline.
Yeah.
It's past tense, then it's present tense, then it's future tense, then it's present tense again, then it's past tense again. And it's like, what? I have no idea if you're 40, if you're 20, if you're in college, if you're
Yeah.
working for 15 years. I can't figure out where we are because, the story makes sense to him,
Yeah.
but on the page, it made no sense whatsoever. So my idea with the progression here is I am, brief statement, one or two sentences. Here's who I am today. Then go back in time. And from that point forward, you tell a chronological story that just goes forward, not back.
Sure.
So my
And the
thing,
first, yep.
using myself as an example, it was like, well, I think it was I could skip back to whatever I wanted to skip back to, but I think I wanted to skip back to the founding of my business.
Sure.
Go back to 2009 and the back room of the little cafe where I started Fox LSAT.
Yep.
But then it's like only forward progress
Yeah.
leading up to the present day instead of all this bouncing around all over the place. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's perfect. So you start out one sentence, this is who I am. Then you talk about one thing that you did. And then your next piece of advice is to say, I do. And now you're talking about what you're doing today, which is so important. I can't believe how many people talk about, they're tempted to talk about things in the past and then they stay in the past, which always raises the question, okay, but what are you doing today? Uh, as a human being, we expect you to be learning and growing every day. So if your biggest triumph was 3 years ago and you haven't really done anything since, you haven't built upon it, it's kind of like, well, where's the momentum? You're coming to law school. Have you lost that momentum? Are you stuck in the past? So I love this framework. I am, I did, I do. This is what I'm doing today. And you can talk about a project you're working on or, a challenge or problem that you're solving. It doesn't need to be a huge challenge. I hate to use that word because people misinterpret that and think that it needs to be some grand, obstacle that they've overcome, but
No,
it's just something that
mundane.
you're working on. Mhm.
Yeah, mundane businessy type of stuff is super valuable. If I was going to write about what I do now, I would write about teaching, which I love more than ever. you
Yeah.
know um I would also write about podcasting with you,
Hmm. Hmm.
which is like almost my favorite part of the week probably.
Yeah.
And so it's like I'm being positive and like talking about stuff that you like, you make yourself look like a winner.
Yeah.
right? By just
Yeah.
being positive and enthusiastic about the stuff that you're doing now. I would also talk about management stuff like hiring teachers or training teachers. And none of this is like so wildly impressive.
Yeah.
It's just you're portraying yourself, demonstrating skills that like a real lawyer would use every day.
Yeah. Exactly. Just to give more examples, if I were to write a personal statement now, I could talk about using this structure. I could talk about how I am the co-founder of LSAT Demon with you, and what did I do? We could go back to any point. We could talk about launching LSAT Demon. I could talk about how I, ran an in-person brick and mortar LSAT company in Washington, D.C. And then that led to the LSAT Demon. But then in terms of what I do today, I would probably focus on how we've learned painfully in some cases, but how we're essentially transforming into a software company in addition to an LSAT preparation company. Because really, if you want to succeed in this space, you have to see yourself as continually developing, continually improving. And what does that mean on a day-to-day basis? Here's a challenge that we faced, and here's what we did to solve it, and moving on.
So I do. By the way, just to give people a rough sense of how long this stuff is, if you're going to do it this way, I want the I am to be one sentence, maybe two,
Yep.
like literally not three ever, just
Yeah.
real short.
Yep.
A one sentence standalone paragraph is such a power move. You could absolutely get away with that. And then go back in time and start, you basically tell about the progression of pick a point in time that you think is interesting to the reader and go from
Yeah.
there up to where you are today. That's maybe half a page, three quarters of a
Yeah.
page, depending on how much
A
experience you
paragraph
have that
or
you want to
two.
talk about.
Yeah.
Okay. Then when you switch to I do, that's another half a page, three quarters of a page, something like that. So at this point, we're now up to a page and a half,
Yep.
which is time to wrap it up.
Yep.
And for many people, they can just stop there. Um, I don't know that I would need, with my record, I don't know that I would really need to explain why law school. I've been an LSAT teacher for a long time. I obviously know a lot of lawyers. I I know what I'm getting myself into. I don't know that I really need to make that forward-looking statement about what I plan to do next.
Yeah. So your last piece of this structure is, and this is the way you put it, and optionally I will. In other words, you've talked about who you are, you've talked about what you've done in the past, you talked about what you're doing now, and then you might make one single sentence claim about what you will do in the future. And I think what you said in the newsletter, and what I think makes a lot of sense, is you're only saying this if you feel the need to explain why you're pivoting to law school, right? Like if you're a musician or a biologist, it's kind of like, okay, if it wasn't obvious from what you're doing now why you're applying to law school, maybe you can throw in one sentence that says, I look forward to, you know, uh, pursuing law in this bio, chemical space. And that's kind of brings the two together, right? I don't even know how that's, so I'm just coming up with a sentence on the fly, but you're essentially in one sentence telling them why you're going to law school.
Yeah, and I think I would just be really hesitant to even put that in for most people. I don't think most people need that.
No,
Uh,
and most people go, it's a trap, right? It becomes this, it's so easy to say what you will do. I mean, anyone can say that. Oh, I will become president of the United States. So that's so great that you said that, but that's precisely because it's so easy to say is the same reason why it's so useless.
No, you're going to make
Because
yourself look like an ass if you say something like that. I mean, it's great to
not
have
that people say
high,
that, right? But they can say. My point is they can say anything, and
right.
so it doesn't have it doesn't carry the weight that it you think it does. Like if
No,
you
it's
say, "Oh,
inherently bullshit.
yeah,
You haven't done it yet. I don't care what you think you want to do. It's like I'm you're going to change your mind once you get to law school anyway, 9 times out
yep,
of 10.
yep,
So I don't, I would just be very, very careful. Don't even include it for most people. But yeah, if you were a ballerina and your whole nothing about your whole resume or anything suggests law school, then I think it is appropriate to have just one sentence, again, maybe two, about what you plan to do in this next phase of your life.
yep,
But if you're a paralegal, you don't need to do that. Or if you're a majored in poli sci or criminal justice, or if you've worked in anything that's law or business related, because business is law. I mean, you know, if you've done anything close to the business world, I just don't think you even need to just let the reader fill in that blank. One thing I said in the piece is they're in the business of selling law school. They probably know more about the opportunities that law school has to offer than you do.
yeah,
So if you jump the gun with like, here's what I'm going to do, they
yeah,
might have been willing to make a more powerful inference than that on your behalf. And instead, now you're like, well, I'm going to practice IP law. And they're like, really? Do you know what that
yeah.
is? Do you, hmm.
You don't have a technical background.
Right,
Do you realize
exactly.
you can't even do that? Yeah. So
Exactly. No, and you just look naive.
yeah,
You shortchanged the conclusion that they could have made to your benefit, and instead
yeah,
you're telling them that you're going to do some other thing that makes you like you tip your hand as okay, this person actually doesn't have any idea what they're talking about.
yeah,
So they could have just omitted
yeah. So quick
sentence or
recap.
two.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, good. Yeah.
Well, sentence
Sentence
or
or two.
two about what you who you are today,
Yep.
because that's the person who's
Yep.
going to their law school. So they are very
Yeah.
interested in who you are now.
Yeah.
But part of who you are now is how you got to be where you are now. So, probably some stories are in order. You can tell a little bit about the progression, how you got to where you are today. That's half a page ish. Then what you do now, I do. And
Yep.
you talk about, as much as you have space for 3/4 of a page about your day to day in your current role. And then, if necessary, one or two sentences forward looking that say what you intend to do.
Yep.
But just be real careful about that last bit. I mean, it's very optional and probably should be omitted in most cases.
Yeah, and if we were to unpack these four steps, you're already saying that the last step is a maybe. You might not need it, right? For sure. That's one that we're definitely questioning. I would say the first one might not also be necessary,
Right.
and the second one might not also be necessary. Um, it, if you're a strong writer, then focusing just on what you're doing today may totally work for you, and we've seen that happen. But I think this is just a structure at the very minimum to get started, right? Get things out on the page in a way that's
Oh, yeah.
natural and works for so many people.
No, please do not think that this is the magic formula for how every personal statement should be structured. This is one
Yeah,
way to get a shitty first draft out on the page.
yeah,
If you're totally stuck, have no idea what to talk about, no idea how to do this assignment, do this, right? 2 or 3 pages worth of, don't edit yourself too much. Just write it, just get it out there on the page,
yeah.
then put it away for a couple days, then come back to it. And now you can reread it and edit it and see if you've got something there that you actually want to build on. If not, that's
Yeah.
okay too. But it's just like a lot of times the key to writing is to just get that first draft out there.
Yeah. And if you really don't like this idea of writing a personal statement or writing in general, um, you need to think about whether you should go to law school. I mean, I
Right.
know we harp on that maybe too much, but I I, I just can't say it enough. You're going to law school, and your weapon of choice as a lawyer is your verbal capacity, your ability to articulate whatever it is you're thinking in a way that's persuasive to someone else. If you can't do that, you really don't have any business in the legal field.
No,
And it
you're a
doesn't matter whether you're
professional.
doing that orally or on paper. You have to get to a point where you can clearly identify what you're thinking and then say and say that in a way that other people understand, right? There's yeah, and
You're a
writing is a
professional reader and writer. That's what a
yeah.
lawyer is, a professional reader and writer. I mean, I was just talking to Matt, recording some stuff for the potential new podcast,
Yeah.
LSAT Demon Daily. Stay tuned. But talking to Matt, and what's he doing? Oh, he just finished his final exams, and he's sitting there reading 300 pages that they assigned him so that he can write a fake journal note, so that it's all fake. It's just, this is all fake, but he's writing a journal note, reading 300 pages first.
Yeah.
And by the way, this ain't 300 pages of Stephen King. This is 300 pages of like super dry academia, legal
Yeah.
academia. He's
Yeah.
reading 300 pages of that so that he can write a note, so that he can hopefully get on journal,
To
so that
write
he
more.
can then spend his entire 2L year nitpicking punctuation on citations in legal academic articles.
Yeah.
It's, like, yeah, I people who are bad readers, I think you're barking up the wrong tree. I don't think you're going to be successful in this field.
Yeah.
What are you doing? It's like, oh, I'm going to be a UFC. I want to try to be I'm going to be a professional UFC fighter, but you're like not good at punching or getting punched or wrestling or I don't know, any of the other skills of a like you're super slow, you're not very strong, you're not tough, and you want to be in the UFC. I mean, that's what that's like for somebody who's, oh yeah, I don't really like reading.
Yeah. Why do you think the LSAT is all words? It's all words. And that's exactly what they're testing you on, is your ability to read and understand. It's not an accident. Some people look at the test as like a necessary evil that they have to get through to get to law
Oh
school.
God.
No, I mean, it's not like people sat down and made the test just like, oh, well, wouldn't it be fun to throw in little paragraphs that have like words and arguments and try to figure out whether they're flawed or not? I mean, that just seems fun. And maybe if someone's good at that, they might be good at law school. No, they actually looked at law school and said, what are some of the
Yeah.
skills that are being tested and what are ways in which we can test them? So yeah.
And as
Anyways,
far as the difficulty goes, it's just the difficulty and the amount of work that's required. The LSAT is just the barest tiny tip of the iceberg. I
mhm.
mean, I know law firm lawyers who work 70 hours a week who email me asking me for the newest LSAT logic games so that they can do them for fun. you know, like that's the type of people that you're going to be encountering in the legal profession. So
Yes.
if you think, oh, I'm just going to get past this so that I can get on with, oh, law school will be easier.
Yeah.
What? No, no, you are sorely mistaken.
Yeah.
Law school is much more competitive and more difficult. Denser reading. Oh, you don't like the reading? I get all the time, Ben. I don't like these reading comprehension passages. How do I get past these? They're just so boring.
They're boring. Yeah, I get distracted. Yeah, well, you got to figure it out, because if you can't, those are 15 sentences. You're going to be reading books that are over 300 pages long
Matt's reading
daily.
300 pages during his summer break after he said it was one day after finals.
Yeah.
The journal packet dropped and it's 300 pages of academia. And
Yep.
he's got to write this essay and get the assignment, he's got to get the assignment done.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, that's before he starts his summer internship or whatever. And, just what, 10, 12 weeks from now, he'll be starting his 2L year, which is more work than your 1L year, especially because he's hoping to get on to journal
Yeah.
so that he can work even more
I
in
mean,
nothing but super dense, boring, heavy, poorly written academic text.
yeah. The good news of all of this is, if this conversation uh, incites in you a bring it on attitude,
Mm-hmm.
then maybe you are in the right place. If you're like, yes, that's what I want to do. I want to kick ass in that game, because that's just a game, right? And if that kind of game sounds exciting to you, then great. All the more power to you, right? Some games in life sound awful and you want to run away from them. We're trying to describe the game that you're going to play. If it sounds fun, then cool.
Yeah,
Do
you
it.
want to be like Cole Black, my lawyer buddy, who I used to call her Nikki Black, but we have another Nikki lawyer friend.
Yeah.
And so now Nicole Black is going to be called Cole Black. We're changing her name.
Okay.
It's easier
Cool.
for everybody.
Oh,
Anyway, Cole,
including her, I guess. Huh?
yeah. So Cole, you know, she says explicitly that she wants work to be the primary focus of her life.
Yeah, she
Nothing
likes
makes
that
her,
game and she wants to play it.
yeah,
Wow.
exactly.
Yeah.
Nothing makes her happier than waking up. She's at her desk at 8 in the morning and she's got an endless pile of work, and it's going to not get smaller between 8 a.m. and 7 p.m. when she knocks off for the day.
Yeah.
That pile of work is not going to get smaller, and that's how she likes it.
Well, what's so interesting about that comment right there is that it just shows that she's not necessarily, I mean, on some level, yes, but uh, for most of the time, she is not exercising willpower to kick ass in that arena. There's something that about it that actually compels her forward. And so if you have to exercise serious willpower to get this kind of shit done, you're not gonna
Yeah.
you're not gonna compete. You're
No,
not
it's
gonna
the
make it.
it's the endless game of lawyering, and she
Yeah.
loves it. And I think LSAT reading comprehension is a real good first spot for people to come to terms with what the rest of their life is going to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
I find that more often than not, when I get done reading a reading comprehension passage, I'm glad I read it,
Mm-hmm.
because I'll play the game, right? The first sentence or two are going to be dense and bewildering, like real hard, impenetrable.
Yeah. They're doing
But
that on purpose. They're throwing you in the
yeah,
deep end of some
yeah.
random esoteric topic. Yep.
And I'm like, oh, okay, I got this. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
sure. I understand what you're trying to do to me. I'm not going to let you do that. I'm going to stop. I'm going to unpack it. And after the first couple sentences, it's never as bad as you think it's going to be if you take the time to really unpack it and you
Yeah.
get it. But by the end of the passage, I'm actually enjoying it. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
look at you. Wow, you're really going to town on these guys. Like
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't figure out what you were saying at first, but now I get that you're meaning to say that these guys are wrong. And I'm noticing all the little editorial choices that you're making, and, throwing shade on people with just one tiny little word choice. And I'm in there. Well, I'm playing the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then in the end, it's fun. And you better learn to experience the LSAT reading comprehension that way,
Yeah.
because it'll lead to dramatically higher scores on reading comp. But also, this is just the bare beginnings of what you're going to have to do in law school and beyond.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So learn to love it now.
Or get out. Yeah,
Or
go
get
play a
out,
different
which
game. There's
is
so many games
totally
in the world.
fine.
You can invent your own
Yeah.
game if you want to fucking do that. That's what Elon Musk did. He said, "Okay, I'm going to try to go to Mars." And everybody's like had given up on that game, and now Jeff Bezos is trying to play that. There's some
Yeah.
other companies trying to play that game. You can invent whatever game you want. This is just one old stodgy game that's been around for a long time, and if you like it, great.